I'm not going to belabor this, but basically we became a watershed town early on because there was a demand for clean water. There was a great article today by Elizabeth Boyce where she talked about a guy who tried to, he wanted to swim in the summer, and they said you couldn't go because you have to keep the reservoir clean. And the issue, and you think about all the things like the Clean Water Act started with Love Canal. You think about all these pollution issues. They had to come up with a clean water supply. So here it started, in late 1800s, early 1900s. Bridgeport Hydraulic Company, I still remember that. They had signs up when I was a kid. I grew up here. Next slide. We have 3 reservoirs in town. I call it the Eastern Reservoir, but we have, the Hemlocks down by the Hi-Ho. We got the Saugatuck up by Reading, and then I call it the Eastern Reservoir over on the east side. Next slide. And the important thing about that is we provide over 750,000 people with drinking water in Bridgeport and Lower Fairfield County. Then you can read along with me. The key point here is, the takeaway is, what is this AA public water supply watershed? Well, basically it starts at Beers Road, like I was talking about that sign when you drive up there, and it goes all the way up. You can see the map over there, the public drinking water supply map. That green part is June will show it to you. That green part, you can see the reservoirs. You can see the lower end of town is white. That's not in the AA watershed. And that's where we basically have 1 acre, slightly less than 1 acre zone. It used to be called, Plattsville or something like that. It's a different part of town. And then the rest of it, most of the town, you can see, is in the AA public water supply. And basically what that means is that you wouldn't want to do this, but you could just go down and drink the water right out of the reservoir. It's that clean. And that's what it means. And then to juxtapose that with Bridgeport, has basically the worst quality water you can have because it's a city. So we're the last sort of clean watershed area before it gets really crowded in Fairfield County. I mean, there is like a Norwalk reservoir and this or that, but basically this is sort of the last big wooded area. Like if you're in a plane and you're flying over, this is kind of the last big unbuilt up, unmanicured, like it really gets very suburban after this. All right, the next slide. Again, I already alluded to this. What's the AA watershed? It's where the surface water designation is the highest level of water quality under state law, defined by the DEEP. Next slide. This is basically what we said. These are the cleanest, most protected waters in the state, reservoirs, rivers, and all the things that feed into the reservoir. And again, that's what Easton is. You saw it on the map. We're explaining it here. This is what Easton is. We're a reservoir town. Next slide. This is just more about that. Well, the goal of this, obviously, when they made this classification, is to preserve this, because once it's polluted, like, say, a Love Canal or something, you really can't clean it up. And what pollutes it? Well, first of all, septic systems, and there's a whole history of septic systems. Unfortunately, I became an expert in sewage treatment plants, and I've gone on the radio and this or that, because I'm also involved with Black Rock Harbor, which is very polluted, and they have a very antiquated wastewater treatment plant there, the West Side plant. And every time it rains, it basically overflows into the harbor, and they close Fairfield Beach. And there's an interesting aside about that, is that the pipe was supposed to go from that plant all the way out into the middle of Long Island Sound. But they cut corners, they cut costs, and the pipe comes out right below Mr. Williams' office at Captain's Cove. So if you go to his office and you go out on the dock, you'll see this pipe, and there's all these bunker fish that feed down there. And that's why the pipe comes out right below his office. It just shows you how poorly that plant was built. So myself and some other activists, we filed Clean Water Act citizen suits to get them to rebuild that plant. It's going to cost over $100 million. It's being phased in. But that's another reason why you don't want to be pumping a lot of excess sewage into that. And Trumbull feeds it into that plant. So if we build this Plumtree development and it's tied to that sewer, all those apartments are going to go to that plant that it's outdated, it can't handle it. So, I mean, Fairfield Beach, the whole area is going to be affected by that. So these things don't happen. You can't just, you don't live in an existential vacuum when you build some kind of development like this. You have to look at the whole picture, what's going to happen to the sewage. But in Easton, we mostly have septic systems. They've evolved over the years, but it's if anybody knows, if you've had a system fail, it's a big deal. And you don't want pathogens and other contaminants in your drinking water. And what happens is, when you have apartments or high-density housing, you can't have a simple residential septic system. So they want to put in community septic systems, mini wastewater treatment plants. Like up at Barlow, they have a mini wastewater treatment plant. It's that building, treats the sewage. They want to put those like in neighborhoods. And the problem with that is they can get messed up really easily, like with baby wipes. People throw baby wipes. You'd be surprised, a baby wipe can clog the whole sewage system in Bridgeport. And then they cost a lot of money to maintain. So Bill Capinzi actually put in an ordinance that bans community septic systems in Easton, and that's going to be challenged. Right now, for example, Mr. Lisi built a commercial cabinet factory next to Silverman's, and he put a septic system in with his new commercial factory, and he tied it to the pre-existing septic, and he was trying to say it's not a community septic. But I mean, that's not like an innocent barn, for example. That's a factory with its own septic system, and it has offices and bathrooms upstairs, and people are going to go in and buy their new kitchen cabinets. They're like a retail showroom. So it's a total commercial business with its own septic system, for example. So anyway, next slide. And like I said, the implications for development is that the septic has really been slowing down developers from carving up Easton and building apartments and breaking the zoning. That's why I was on the sewage working group with Democrat Senator Christine Cohen of the Economic Development Committee. And basically their goal was to weaken the septic rules and regulations so that they could build higher density housing. And of course I fought them on that, but they've figured out that septic tank regulations are stopping them. And that's why we've been able to stop many of these projects over the years. So they've been weakening those. They've changed definitions, like they've taken a 10,000 gallon per day system that would normally be called a large system, and they've renamed it a small system, and now suddenly it's fine. So they've weaseled with it, and that's another issue. So we're going to need experts and people who are very familiar with sewage treatment as these projects come down the line. And I have a good amount of experience, but I'm not an engineer. I have a background in physics. All right, next slide. I think everyone knows we have no sewers. That's one of the big talking points with the Plumtree. Mr. Shapiro, he's saying he's going to try to tie it into the Trumbull sewers. And we have no commercial zoning in town. There are no commercial zones. There's just 2 residential zones, a 3-acre zone and basically a little less than a 1-acre zone. There's some businesses that predate 1941 zoning, like Greiser's, for example, and what we used to have, the EVS, Easton Village Store, Howells Act. They're entitled to keep operating, even though they're non-conforming, because they predate zoning, and they should be able to thrive and exist. And I've talked to Adrian Burke and tried to help her out with Greiser's, because Greiser's deserves to do well. It just has a lot of challenges, and the town hall should be helping them more than they do. But basically right now we just have residential only. That's why Mr. Lisi, he was supposed to have a house there on that lot. So originally he built that thing that looks like a workshop, but that's a 3-acre residential zone, and he has like a 1.5-acre lot. He was supposed to put a house on it. Somehow he got permission. The records are gone. Supposedly there was a flood, and we don't have the records of how he actually got permission to build that. Then, so it was non-conforming. It was supposed to be a house. He didn't use it as a house, so he got a cease and desist letter. Said you need to use it as a house and not as a workshop. And then, lo and behold, lately he's got permission somehow to build a factory next to it. So that's a good example of, how the commercial zones, which we don't have, are coming into play. And there's a simple answer to fixing those kind of things, because I had a couple lawsuits, and the judge sat us down and said, all you need to do is take the pre-1941 businesses, make a separate set of zoning regulations for them, for EVS, for Bluebird, for Geisers, Apple Barn, the few businesses that predate, and say exactly what they can do. Like they can't be a McDonald's, they can't be a dry cleaner, you know, but they could be a country store. And then all these problems would be solved. But instead, what they want to do is they want to put a commercial overlay zone, which is a floating spot, a floating zone in zoning law, and make the whole area near Geisers, including like the Congregational Church, and the whole area near EVS and Silverman's a floating zone, so you put new businesses in there. So like say Mr. Lisi decides, hey, I want to put in a, he's talked about a farm-to-table restaurant. You know, his factory could become a restaurant under this floating zone. So that's one of the big differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, is that they favor that, that floating zone concept, where you can bring in new businesses to put in their Silverman's. You could put a dry cleaner, you could put whatever. And some Republicans too, like Ray Martin, or former Republican, he favors that. All the developers have moved over to the Democrat side. Ray Martin's a big supporter of D'Addario now. So all the developers are on that Democrat side right now. And then Easton enforces low-density housing because of the reservoirs and because of the septic situation. So next slide, and I'm going to start going faster. We went through this already. There's the map. Next slide. We supply all these towns with water, over 750,000 people, so this isn't just an Easton issue. If you drink the water in Fairfield County, you should care about Easton. Next slide. I guess just next slide. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning. I mean, we're a farm town, we're a reservoir town. It's what makes Easton Easton. And that's why we don't have, since 1941, they've decided we don't want large commercial zones. That's not why people move here. They don't move here to go to the Trumbull Mall or to have a bus stop or a sidewalk. And I've been out knocking on doors. There's not one single person who says they want an apartment building or they want sidewalks like we're being pushed by our land use office. I mean, they had this plan to run sidewalks all the way from Geisers to EVS down Center Road, and then down my road, Banks Road, which is like a country road. And I talked to Phil DeRamus, I go, why do you want like a sidewalk down Banks Road? He's like, well, that's so tourists can come up here and have a picnic, and then they can ride their bikes down your road, and more people will come up here. And I'm like, so you want like tourists to have a picnic on my front yard, and a side. So I mean, it was called the Design Charrette. You could look it up. It's still on, and that's what our current land use director. That was one of his great ideas. So anyway, we are still luckily a rural community with lots of farms. And one of the things we have to do is help our farms. There's all kinds of grants. Right now we have $1 million in a land preservation fund that we could buy land with. We're not doing anything with. There's all kinds of state funding, like OSWA funding, where we could buy land. We're not doing that. So I mean, if I get elected, I'm definitely going to get really involved in helping our farms and trying to preserve open space. The Democrats keep saying, you know, we can't buy all the farms, and to prevent them from development. Well, guess what? We have historically. I mean, we bought South Park Avenue. Tom Herman's here. He was going to talk about that. And you can lease them from the people. You can lease them back to the farmer. There's all kinds of things you could do if you're proactive and don't just take the roll over and let the developers dictate what's going to happen approach like they're taking now. All right, next slide. The 830G thing has been around for a long time, since the early 70s. It's never worked. It's failed to achieve its goal of promoting affordable housing. And, you know, but we have to comply with it. There's a right way and a wrong way to comply with it. I would opine that the wrong way is to just let a developer like Mr. Shapiro come in and put 40 apartments suddenly in. We should phase it in. And instead, you know, like Westport built senior housing in an old school. We have an old school, we have a senior center. We could see if anyone wants, you know, us to build some nice units over there. We could do more with our accessory apartments. There's a lot of garage apartments in town with people who are mothers-in-laws and that are living there, actually paying rent, and they can qualify as affordable housing. And the last time I checked, when we went up on this, with the land use consultant, Childress, when we did our affordable housing plan for the town. He said we didn't need that many units. So we just got to start doing it the right way, planning for affordable housing the right way. And guess what? Guess what we're doing right now under the Democrat regime? How many affordable housing committee meetings do you think they've had? Yeah, it's like that concept in math, like absolute zero. So they're doing nothing. And when you talk to Bindeglass, he doesn't want to get involved. He wants the developers to handle it, to come in and they'll take care of it, so he doesn't have to be bothered or whatever. I don't understand that. So we're going to reform the Affordable Housing Planning Committee. Daryl Harris was on it, and then suddenly it was gone. And we'll start planning for that. Do it the right way, so that we're not, just held at gunpoint by developers like Mr. Shapiro. And I don't know if you went to the meeting. He didn't exactly make a great impression. Those are the people who, are gunning for us. So let's go, next slide, please. Again, it's not just Easton, it's a regional issue here. And this argument doesn't really persuade anybody, but you're a taxpayer in town, so basically you pay high taxes to pay for the reservoirs, to give people in Bridgeport clean water. And so, if we didn't have the reservoirs and we had, you'd probably be paying lower taxes, but nobody really wants to hear that. They don't have much sympathy for us, but it is true. You pay a lot of taxes to keep the land undeveloped. And it's basically a regional arrangement that we've had. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the zoning regulations are the hot topic here. We'll keep going. Oh, that's my good old Black Rock Harbor with the fish, and it's not, you wouldn't want to go swimming. I don't even like going swimming at Fairfield Beach. I don't know about you, but it's not exactly like Rhode Island. It's not clean. All right, next slide. So again, we already went through this. We have residential only zoning in town. There is no commercial zones. And that's another thing. Our land use consultant has been going through the zoning regulations and basically deleting anything that made it clear that we have only 2 residential only zones. Instead, they keep putting in all these other exceptions. Well, you could have this kind of business, this kind of thing. And they keep whittling away at the very simple formula that we have is 3 acre and then basically 1 acre, a little bit smaller than 1 acre minimum lot size, and no commercial anything really, other than certain things, like you could have doctor's offices, or listen, I mean, there's always contractors who have their trucks, but they have barn. We're not talking about that. We're talking about things like Mr. Lisi's building his cabinet factory. Okay, next. We have no commercial zoning, so don't let people tell you we do. Next. Go back. This is the big thing. These special permits have been being doled out like, it depends on who you are. You can get a special permit if they like you. And you could do things that we would never, 10 years ago be able to do. Now suddenly we have these special permits showing up out of nowhere. And we have Mr. Montgomery here who ran into this because he lived next to EVS. EVS ripped, for example, one of the many things they did wrong was they ripped their gas pumps out. They took that contaminated soil and dumped it on his land. And so he had to sue him. But that was all, that expansion of EVS into something that it never was before was all a special permit, and they didn't do it the right way, and then they lost in court. These lawsuits, they're talking about the excess legal fees. They wouldn't have them if they kept losing every lawsuit that comes up against the town. I mean, Montgomery alone has won 3. And before that, we had the remember the slaughterhouse, where somebody wanted to build a slaughterhouse up on Tranquility, and the neighbors, they lost that one. I mean, there's a whole list of lawsuits they just keep losing, and that's really why. And even my Lisi one, that shouldn't have had to be filed if they would just have filed the zoning regulations. And the judge said we had great arguments, and that shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be allowed. So that's why we have high legal fees, because we have a land use office that doesn't follow the regulations. So we're going to change that. Next slide. Well, yeah, I mean, you got to set aside open space. We're going to have that. Keep going, because the next slide has I want to speed this up a little bit here. Let's keep going. Keep going. We have in our POCD, when we amend that, it does say that we should oppose cluster housing, commercial zones. Keep going. Keep going. All right, well, this is an important one, and I think even our esteemed first selectman doesn't understand this based on some of his commentary. If you want to understand Saddle Ridge, it's very easy. In 2008, it was approved for 21 houses under normal 3-acre zoning. That's probably what they should have done at that time. They probably should have just built the houses and be done with it. But instead, they wanted to make more money, and they came up with a whole bunch of different iterations, like some had affordable housing, some had a lot of units. And Citizens for Easton, other people fought this for years and years and years, and they won. And then Mr. Stone also passed away. That sort of slowed things down. But in the meantime, in 2019, Ray Martin and some others on zoning passed this conservation development. And then in 2023, Nick D'Addario voted on it again and approved it. And he's all for it, by the way. He's all for this. He's come out in his little stage contrived video that looked like speed dating the other day. He says he's all for it. But basically what it is they're somehow getting 26 houses now, where in 2008 they could only get 21 out of 3-acre zoning. So that's what this is all about. It's about the 5 extra houses, and the developer came in here and said, I can't make enough money, I can't make enough profit building on 3-acre only lots, which is untrue. I mean, we've got people in this room building houses on 3-acre lots, and it's fine, but they came out and admitted that they're not. So it's all about profit. And that's why this is, we call this, go to a next one, false conservation development. It's not conservation. Conservation development in any other town would be the same number of houses as in 3-acre zoning. But instead they've twisted around, it's like a Trojan horse, they've used the name, but it's not really what it is at all. So that's what we're objecting to. And when you read the actual conservation development, it gives great power to the land use consultant and to the planning and zoning to actually determine the final number of houses, like in this broad way that probably is illegal and it won't survive in court when it gets challenged. All right, so next, I forget what this one was about. Water company. I'm just gonna skip this one because I'm sorry, I don't remember that one. Yeah, so basically our conservation development is terrible. It has all these loopholes. It's not really a conservation development. That's it in a nutshell. Go next slide. Well, this is one thing that Tony Wong was working on. He wanted to exempt reservoir towns from 830G. It didn't pass. But it's a good idea, and the reservoir towns will get together. Maybe we can get something, some kind of break on the number of units or the land that's affected. Maybe the watershed area could be exempted. So we're going to keep really working on this at the state level. It makes a lot of sense to exempt watershed towns from dense apartment buildings. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, these are just some scientific reasons why smaller lots, give you more pollution. Next slide. Yeah, I mean, the Saddle Ridge thing is coming back to life thanks to, people like Nick and Ray Martin, unfortunately. And we're going to have to keep fighting that. So it's a hot topic everybody's talking about. It's an election issue. All right, go next slide. This guy right here, I don't know who he is. So. All right. And then, so what can we do? We can, obviously, the first thing we need to do is, as Judge Radcliffe said, our zoning is a mess. You can't even go to our website and read our zoning regulations in one document. You have to sit there and click through like 10 amendments and try to piece it together. It's ridiculous. So the first thing we have to do is clean up our zoning regulations. The judge says they don't read right and they're a mess. So we need to do that. That's step number one. And while we're doing that, we should put in more water protection first into our zoning regulations. So we could put it in the preamble to prioritize Class A watershed. That would be, something we should definitely get in. And I remember I started this, like, we don't talk about the reservoir enough. I mean, I've never been to a zoning meeting where they actually talk about the watershed. I mean, it needs to be right at the top of the meetings, because that's what we're all about. We got to fix this conservation development loophole, and then we need to, getting back to overlay zones, maybe a watershed overlay zone might actually be good. So that might be a good overlay zone as opposed to the commercial one they're talking about. I mean, it's odd. They're talking about, commercialization all the time, and they're not talking about protecting the watershed. That's just not on their agenda. All right, so next slide. And I'm going to just, it's already 8, so let's see. These are just the people we're going to work with. Okay, keep going. And then this is why you're here, organize and mobilize locally. I mean, we need to, I've said it a million times, people are coming out now, this is a lot of people for a town meeting, but I mean, the same few people unfortunately go to the meetings. I mean, I know people are busy, I know not a lot usually happens in town, but right now there is a lot happening. And we need more people to be involved. And even if it was just a regular group that met, and I certainly, if I win, I will certainly form a group and we will, focus on watershed issues, and be active, and not just, like right now they're really doing nothing, and that's never a good idea, ever, right? To just sit up, rest on your laurels. All right, next slide. Yeah, I mean, listen, these are the same tired arguments that, somehow we're all terrible people and we all don't want people to have an affordable place to live. We could talk about that all day, but basically, when I look at how much an affordable housing rent is, it's about $2,000 a month. They want people to be able to rent apartments for $2,000 a month. So I would, I think that's doable somehow, and I'm not going to get into a big philosophical discourse about social engineering, but the thing is that we can make Easton more affordable, we can comply with the laws, but we don't have to destroy the watershed and everything about Easton. Like a lot of these people, a lot of these groups do. Oh, and the interesting thing about a lot of these advocacy groups is they're funded by out-of-state commercial real estate developers. And they come in and they say, oh, we want to help, affordable housing or this or that. And then you look and they're all registered lobbyists for these big, huge construction companies from out of state. So, you have to be careful and do your research. All right, next one. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was talking about with the OSWA grants. Every year about this time, you can apply. Last year they gave out about $15 million. It lets you buy land. They'll pay for about 65% of it. So if we want to buy a farm, we have some money, then they give us some money, and we could buy the land and preserve it. So this idea that they're saying we can't buy farms, that's basically saying like, well, we're not going to bother using this free OSWA money that the state gives out every year. And land trusts and towns can do it. Like Aspetuck Land Trust can do it, and the town can do it. And we're not really doing it. So we would do more of that. Okay, next slide. So this is what Lent for Easton's all about here. This is why I ran. I mean, obviously I have a lot of other things I could be doing, but I just be honest with you, I don't want to move. I mean, I built my house, I grew up here, the town's a special place, and we need to fight. I'm going to fight, and if we lose, we lose, but we're going to fight. We're not just going to capitulate like the Democrats are doing right now. All right, next slide. And I think that's it, right? Is that it? So we have an agenda. I know